Next talk is on capitalism from me. And do you all remember the internet sensation of what color is that dress? It was a worldwide test of how people perceive color on a striped dress. Millions took the test. Turns out that 60% saw the dress as black and blue, and 40% saw the dress as white and gold. The dress was actually white and gold, but the majority of people perceived the colors as black and blue. And no matter how hard you tried to explain the true colors of the dress, no one could change their perception. Their eyes and brains had tricked them into seeing only one version of the dress. I believe we have a similar problem today with true believers in socialism. They cannot see the true colors, but are trapped in their own faulty perception of reality. Every generation needs to learn the lessons of socialism. It sounds so good. Doesn't everyone want free stuff? The young people who voted for Bernie Sanders are particularly captivated by socialism, and these little socialists like the promise of plenty and equality. Santa Claus brings everyone free health care, free child care, free education, free housing. Many of us in this room learned the bitter lessons of socialism through the Cold War or with the Soviet Union. But for anyone born after the fall of the Berlin Wall in 1989, they think socialism failed because the communist leaders didn't do a good job. The communists and socialists of the 20th century did succeed. They succeeded in destroying people, in destroying cultures, in destroying history, in destroying economic systems, and destroying governments. We must teach these powerful lessons to the new little socialists of today, because they're not reading history. First of all, what is the definition of socialism? The abolition of private property. The government owns you, and you own nothing. The current new face of socialists today is Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who will be elected to Congress this fall, and has actually said that one of her goals is to abolish profit. She's going to be elected from Brooklyn, I think. Our socialist poster girl parlayed her newfound fame into a photo shoot with fancy clothes and shoes. Well, that doesn't seem very fair to those of us who can't afford those clothes. But why doesn't she want that clothing designer to profit from her hard work and creativity? No, Alexandria wants free stuff. I think the appeal of socialism among young people is that it is a public declaration of their own virtue and shows that they care so much more about people than the rapacious capitalists do. These new little socialists are obsessed with two four-letter F words: free and fair. Such warm and fuzzy-sounding words, but freedom is never free, and government should not try to guarantee outcomes. And who decides what is fair? As George Orwell said in Animal Farm, some pigs are more equal than other pigs, and you can be sure that the pigs in control will always get more than their fair share. Should we entrust government to mandate fairness? Many people say they want fairness and equality for others. But socialist leaders always demand a higher standard for themselves. And when I pointed out this hypocrisy to one good leftist friend of mine, he replied to me, "Don't be ridiculous." And who pays for free? As Margaret Thatcher said, eventually you do run out of other people's money. Socialism hurts those it purports to help. There is always much greater poverty under socialism than capitalism. And let's look at the socialist platform and see how socialism hurts people. Minimum wage. If you have a job, if you have no job, then raising a minimum wage does not get you a job. And what if raising the minimum wage results in your job being automated? Everyone needs a first job, and no one knows anything on his first job. I got my first job at the age of 16, and I am grateful for a first boss who taught me how to be an employee. Unfortunately, fewer teenagers are getting jobs today. For some jobs, the minimum wage pay rate is just too high for a brand new teenage employee who always will need much more training and oversight. Today, the average time a worker spends on one job is 4 years. And any time a worker tries a new field or a new job, the employer must consider how much time and cost will be spent on training. If the government mandates a wage scale that does not make economic sense for the employer, then no one will be hired. Cities that have dramatically increased the minimum wage have seen businesses close and move, and employees lose jobs, as has happened in my hometown. 2, the corollary to a minimum wage is a maximum wage, a ceiling on how much someone can earn. Socialists think that pay inequality is a bad thing. The maximum wage, of course, is usually enforced by taxation. One reason Ronald Reagan became a conservative was the maximum wage imposed upon him during his Hollywood years. His accountant told him to only work 2 months out of the year because anything he earned in the other 10 months would just go directly to the IRS. So Reagan limited his work and income rather than have his compensation go to the IRS. People do like to see the fruits of their own labor. Number 3, minimum guaranteed income, something which Finland tried, failed, and rejected. Allegedly, providing a minimum income to everyone would provide dignity. The opposite is true. We gain dignity by our own accomplishments, not by what is given to us. Do you get more satisfaction from a job well done or from cash in your pocket? If it is not the cash, but it is the sense of accomplishment that satisfies. After all, why work if the government will pay you? Of course, a key reason to work is to have money, but it's always better to choose work we like to do. I know many people who have chosen lower paid jobs because they have a passion for that particular work. And if everyone in the US had an allowance from the nanny state that paid for the basic necessities, then why would anyone ever try to work or try to achieve? And don't we feel sorry for anyone who is not motivated to make something out of their lives? Number 4, guaranteed work. I am sure that everyone in this room has had at some time or another a coworker who slacked off work. Guaranteeing a job for everyone instead guarantees workers are not motivated to be productive. If you cannot be fired, then why exert yourself to produce? The guaranteed jobs that exist in European countries have resulted in high unemployment among youth as older workers stick with a safe, guaranteed job rather than trying something new. The ability to change jobs and change careers is a benefit to the economy because choosing work is a part of pursuing happiness. Number 5, and of course a favorite, is free college education. College is too expensive because most college degrees are not worth the paper they're written on. But college is expensive today because government is involved. As long as taxpayers fund college tuition, then colleges will raise tuition prices in order to feather their own nests. If Bernie Sanders could make college free for all, then what would happen to education? Would the quality of education improve? Would you be able to choose your major, or would quotas be set for each major? College is not for everyone, and nor should we insist that everyone go to college. Today, 41% of students who start college do not graduate. Would making college free increase the number of dropouts? Yes, because students would not have a personal, financial stake in the game. I know a woman who got a full free scholarship to go to law school and then decided after working in law for a year or two that she hated it, and she quit to go walk the Appalachian Trail instead. Since she had not put her own money and sweat equity into getting the degree didn't have any value to her. Free does not have a value. No one ever washes a rental car. But to work hard and to achieve goals that earn money because others value what you offer is what makes for a happy and productive society. And I know for many of you in this room, everything I'm saying seems so self-evident, but this is what we have to explain to the little socialists. So number 6, Medicare for all. If college is free, then health care and child care should be free too. If the services are offered for free, then the pay to providers cannot be high, unless, of course, we raise taxes. Some people, smart people, choose professions that pay a good wage. They don't have to go into medicine. Smart people can choose other fields with better pay. Personally, I would prefer to go to a really smart doctor who is well paid than an overworked, underpaid doctor who graduated at the bottom of his class. But I guess if we want fairness, then all doctors and all patients are the same. Free health care will result in the bare minimum of care for everyone. Free health care means that bureaucrats will make your health care decisions. Free child care and paid family leave has the same funding problems of free health care, plus the added mistake of entrusting bureaucrats to raise the next generation. Please, we already have enough trouble with this group of post-millennials. Socialists want to reduce inequality, but is inequality a bad thing? Would we be happier if we were all the same? So ask wannabe socialists, should we reduce inequality in athletics? Should all basketball players be the same height? Should all football linebackers weigh exactly the same? Well, no, because we like those who achieve with skill and performance. And if you do a good job, shouldn't you be well paid? The answer I hear back is something like, capitalism is not a fair distribution of revenues. It's not right that some people earn so much more than the minimum wage. If the marketplace itself is unfair, then who would decide what is fair? A government death panel? Or should consumers decide with their pocketbooks? We don't have to go back to the ancient history of the Soviet Union to see the tragic consequences of socialism. The evidence is right here, right now in Venezuela. Socialism was used as a means to acquire power. Hugo Chavez was elected in 1998, and the first thing he did was to throw out his country's constitution so he could have full power. So another story. I met a lawyer recently who has just graduated from one of our top law schools, and he was born in Nigeria. And he told me he chose to go into real estate law because he was so impressed by the way Americans bought and sold property all the time. In Nigeria, he said, everyone he knows holds on to property for generations. So I asked him, why is that? He said, it's our tradition. I told this new lawyer, who must have slept through his contracts class, no, that's not the reason. The reason that we in the US, unlike most of the rest of the world, can buy and sell property is because we have contracts that can be enforced with the rule of law. We have a constitution that protects our economic freedom for every individual. Our constitution gives us the opportunity to engage freely in business, trade, occupation, or profession, plus the right to own property and the right to enter into contracts that will be enforced. James Madison, the father of our Constitution, said that the security of property is a primary objective of government. Only a nation that enjoys economic freedom can enjoy political freedom. Only if we are secure in the ownership of our property and the right to choose our occupation, then do we have the liberty to speak out and vote without fear of having our livelihood confiscated. But that's not true in Venezuela today, which is an extraordinarily rich country. It has more oil reserves than any other country, including Saudi Arabia. Yet today, the country is bankrupt with terrible food and medicine shortages. Venezuela is importing oil because they no longer have the capability to get their own oil out of their own ground. And Hugo Chavez started with so much promise that the New York Times wrote in 2012, quote, "Since the Chavez government got control over the national oil industry," that is, taking over private property, "poverty has been cut in half, and extreme poverty by 70%. College enrollment has more than doubled. Millions of people have access to health care for the first time, and the number of people eligible for public pensions has quadrupled." Just 6 years later, that country is a catastrophe. It seems like 21st century socialism has not worked out any better than 20th century socialism. The Venezuelan economy has been cut in half since 2013, and unemployment has now reached 30%. Basic items like baby formula and toilet paper cannot be found on store shelves. And with the loss of economic freedom has come the loss of political freedom. Venezuela is now a country where millionaires are poor. Venezuela has hyperinflation, so they just lopped off the last 3 zeros on their currency, which of course leads to more inflation. In capitalism, the economic pie gets bigger, and people are lifted out of poverty, so much so that the definition of poverty moves upwards. In socialism, the economic pie gets smaller, and people are reduced to poverty. But hey, they're all now equal and fair, and everything's available for free. It's just that you don't have too many things that are available, but what's not to love about all that? Even in the Scandinavian utopias with the broad social safety nets and the high taxes have produced countries with much lower standards of living in the US. Swedes who emigrate to the US have a higher standard of living than Swedes who live in Sweden. The socialist policies erode cultural norms, undermine individual responsibility and the rule of law, and create a destructive race to the bottom. My suggestion is that all of us need to start the conversation with any young person you meet who expresses an interest in socialism or an admiration, and ask these questions. Should college or health care be free? Should wages be equalized and fair? And of course, the immediate answer is yes, we want free and fair. And then begin the conversation. Should you be paid the same as your coworker who does not complete his work? If you work harder, should you be paid more? If you create a new product or design a new book, should your work be protected and belong to you? Do you want to be able to choose your medical professional? Or do you just want to go to the next person available? And ask them to define what socialism means to them. If they answer free and fair, then explain that free and fair must be enforced by government power. And that can only happen with the abolition of private property. Ask people, do you want your life to be just the bare minimum, or do you want your life to be the very best? The very best of anything is neither free nor fair. Young people are very consumer-driven, and socialism gives them no freedom of choice. And these little socialists may have made up their mind that the world is black and blue, but the socialist world is depressing because no one achieves and successful people are smashed down. We must use economic truths to show the true colors and destruction of socialism. Free costs money, and the U.S. offers equality of opportunity, but equality of outcomes is a recipe for destruction. Thank you.